Delight Your Marriage, episode 20.
Welcome to the Delight Your Marriage podcast, the show where you hear from amazing and inspiring wives sharing their struggles, triumphs, and advice for this journey called marriage. Here's your host, Bella Rose.
Hello. This is Bella, and thank you so much for joining me today. I have a really special episode today because I am going to be very vulnerable. This has been my hardest part of my life. And if any woman is out there who, I'm sure there are a lot of women out there that are shaking their heads, yes, I know just what you mean, girlfriend. And if the men who are listening don't understand what I'm talking about, then I'm really glad that you're listening, because this is going to give you a lot of insight into your wife. And secondly, I'm also glad this is recorded, because this is something you're going to need to meditate on and think about and get in order to really love your wife in this way and support her. Well, I'm just going to dive right in. Basically, I'm talking about my eating disorder that started when I was itty bitty and how that has affected everything in my life and how that impacts my marriage. And lastly, and most importantly, how it impacts my walk with God. And I want to give very practical steps that I'm currently taking. And God has given me so much more freedom in this area. I just, again, want to thank you so much for listening. And I hope and pray that this blesses you and your life as well. Also, I have a little announcement at the end of DYM. So I'd love for you to stick around after the music, and I'll chat with you then. Well, thank you again. And I'm just going to dive right in. First of all, I just want to share about my struggle with body image. Yeah, it started when, honestly, as early as I can remember, when I was in, kindergarten at least. No, I don't know. Yeah, no, I was 4. Okay, I remember. I was 4 when my older brother would tease me about being the tomato. My sister's the carrot, but I'm the tomato. Wow, that's early. I didn't even realize that. Well, it started there then, and slowly it grew. But I know my brother didn't, he was 3 years older than me. He was just as young. He didn't know what he was saying, but it affected me. It impacted me. And, the thing is, it's the culture that parents provide in their household is going to allow kids to say certain things. So if the husband is looking at his wife in a certain way, and the wife is looking at herself in a certain way, why then the kids are going to look at the others that are around them in the same difficult, bad way. All right. So anyway, the point is that when as early as elementary school, I would look at the entire room of kids, and these are kids. We're all kids. Elementary school, that's at the most, 9 years old. And I would size them all up and decide, am I the fattest person in the room? Am I the biggest one here? And if it's true, I couldn't even concentrate. I mean, literally, when that thought entered my mind, I remember my face getting red. I remember being embarrassed that I had shorts on, that my legs probably looked so fat and ugly. Literally, I hated that my mom made me wear modest clothes, because I was like, I already look like a, horrible. Why can't I at least wear the clothes that everyone else is wearing? Why do I have to stand out so much? Well, I mean, of course, I didn't understand how men were looking at little girls with, itty bitty shorts on, but I didn't understand that. I didn't know that I had a valuable, desirable body. I just thought I was gross. I thought the reason I had to cover up is because no one wanted to see that nasty under there. And I have to stop, because that's really what I felt. My parents, kind people that tried their best, and they did a lot of good for me in my life. I mean, look at what God has been able to do through me from the background I had. But couple things that they might have missed on was when they encouraged me to eat better and exercise more. And they didn't stop my siblings from teasing me and humiliating me in public for being fat. I'm telling you, it wasn't helpful. That didn't help me at all. That did not encourage me to make good choices at all. I'm telling you that I remained a virgin until I got married, not because I thought I was valuable and deserved respect. I didn't even know I was sexy. I remained a virgin because I thought my body was disgusting in every area. And even more significant, when I got married to my ex-husband, he expected me to be like the women he had viewed on the screen. Are you kidding me? Those women were sinful. I don't act like that. That's sin. How could he expect me to act like that? Absolutely not. I followed Jesus, thank you very much. And that was my perspective. So I had this insecurity coming into marriage of just being completely broken and completely shamed and embarrassed about the thing that my husband was actually supposed to be able to enjoy, but I wouldn't let him. No, that man wants me to do gross things, sinful things. And if he had just done what I did and remained pure before we were married, why then we wouldn't be in this situation now, would we? That was his fault. And I wanted to make sure he knew that. So every time we would actually attempt at having sex, and I would not say making love because that was not what we were doing, but we were trying to have sex, I would have this, it's so far away, I can scarcely really remember, but I just had this bitter feeling towards the whole experience. It was never good. It always hurt. Whatever else, but it was my mind. Again, the psychology of a woman is so connected to her physiology. If she's not feeling loved and embraced and encouraged and excited, it hurts men. It hurts her physically. That's why it's important for you to serve her in the ways that she needs to be served and loved and held and comforted. That's why, because it hurts her if she's not ready. I was embarrassed and I was ashamed in the act. So it became this cycle of rejection. So I knew sex was important for him, but it didn't feel good to me or it didn't feel good to my whole being, much less physically. And so I'd come down the stairs feeling completely vulnerable in something that I thought was ridiculous and that I actually looked ugly in, but that I was hoping he would like. And instead of him recognizing effort I took to be vulnerable and recognizing that I was an open here, I'm like exposing a wound to him that he didn't realize. Like when I did something trying to be sexy, that was opening this wound of saying, am I really gross or do you actually like me? He responded in his own hurt because he knew I didn't enjoy the experience. And so he was hurt by that, but I didn't know that. All I knew was he rejected me so many times that were so painful. He would get me this rebuking look and tell me to go back upstairs. And men, if you're doing that to your wife, you are really hurting her. She doesn't want to make you happy if you treat her like that. She doesn't want to understand you if you treat her like that. She doesn't even want to get out of her own pain enough to hear what's happening to you if you treat her like that. So maybe needless to say, we did get divorced. And shortly after that, I had had little bouts of bulimia here and there since I was young. When I would eat way too much and I just felt so fat, I would purge. And I remember that as early as 9 years old. No one knew. I remember one time my mom caught me coming out of the bathroom and my eyes were bloodshot because I had just purged. And she's like, "What? Are you okay? Were you crying?" And I couldn't even believe how quickly I was able to lie about it. But I said something like, "No, Mom, I sneezed. Do you know how cold it is in this house?" And she just left it at that. Now, I don't want to be bad on my mom. Literally, this woman is incredible. You should have seen the way she raised us. We had every animal you could imagine, and she did all the work to make sure that we had great upbringings. We lived in the woods. I mean, there were so many times that she just dropped everything for us. So I don't want to knock her. She is an incredible woman. Everyone has little blind spots, and that would happen to be hers. But anyway, so after this significant rejection that I encountered in this marriage over again, and meanwhile, throughout the whole marriage, I was praying like crazy. But I didn't understand some things that were really important for me to understand. And people weren't telling me. Honestly, I didn't let people into my life because I was afraid they would reject everything about my marriage. And so then, where would we be if they actually knew what was going on? Then they would say, get away from him. And that's not what I wanted either. So no one really knew. No one was speaking in my life. I didn't have the wisdom that I needed in order to combat all these feelings and all this rejection that I was feeling. So shortly after that, I turned to food to satiate me. It's funny because I was exercising a lot to kind of get out of my emotions, just to it kept me busy. So I would go to the gym, but on the way home from the gym, I would buy a box a box of ice cream, one of those, whatever, the big gallon boxes. And I'd eat the entire thing right after that and then purge it. I mean, that was a cycle. That was the standard for a while. And that might be once or twice a day. Sometimes I'd miss a day. I got onto this program that I really like, actually from Anthony Robbins. And Anthony, I really like him. I think he's got a lot of really good things to say. And really, just like every other business and empowerment book, whatever that's out there, if you pull out biblical principles, you're solid. If you just say that these things are actually godly things, then that I can learn from, why we should learn it, because wisdom is God's wisdom. If you find wisdom out there in the world, it's God's. So if it's true, it's God's. So you can kind of, figure out according to the Bible, test it according to the Bible. But there's a lot of things that are good out there. But again, just as long as you test it and you're shrewd as serpents and don't let, the enemy lie to you through these things, but there are some things that are good. So I think some things in Anthony Robbins' stuff are great. So that was one thing that I did, some of his processes for a while. So one thing that he suggests is a morning routine where you get out and you thank God, or your higher power is what he says, but thank God for everything in your life and what he's given you, and start walking and moving your body and, saying good things about your life and what you want to happen. Like literally just speak faith is what I say. Speak faith. You're not walking by sight, you're walking by faith. And so as I started to actually do this routine, I started living to a higher standard. I started to think of my life as full and good and positive. And, it was a huge, huge difference. And so for 6 months, I was totally bulimia free. And at that time, I was about to graduate from college. And those 6 months, my life turned around. I mean, I was able to do things that I can't believe I was able to do. Even now, I'm like, wow, how did that happen? And all of a sudden, at the end of college, I got all these rewards, and I gave the speech at my commencement, and all these things that God gave me because I wasn't hindered by this horrifying illness and sickness. But very shortly thereafter, I started to date with my broken heart. And so that was where that promiscuous stuff came in. And I started to understand that my body was actually valuable and people actually desired my body, which I didn't think was the case. I literally thought it was gross. That's what I thought. Gentlemen, if your wife is struggling in this area, that's what she's thinking. It's not, when you look at her and you say, put something else on, she thinks you think she's gross. It's not that she's trying to seduce someone else. She has no idea that's what her body is capable of. I am not lying to you. This is real. When I started to date, and then now my brokenness and my wound just started getting bigger and bigger and worse, because, these men, now they want my body, but that's it. Then I'm like, oh, so my body is the thing that matters, not anything else. Like before, I thought they were supposed to value my soul and my body didn't matter. And now I'm like, okay, my body is the only thing that matters and my soul doesn't. So I'm just going to do whatever I want. And of course, that's not God's plan either. So I was just flipping back and forth from one extreme to the next. And I learned a lot through that season, but I learned that I was valuable in my body. And that's what I didn't understand. God was really kind to me, and he gave me a man that let me know how valuable I was and how valuable my body was. He wasn't a Christian, and he has his own sin too that he brought in, but God had given him a gift to tell me how valuable my mind, my emotions, my heart, things that I feel, the things that I say, my past. And he was able to accept and love every part of my body, everything, and be able to tell me about everything that matters to him. and be able to touch me and be able to hold me when I needed it, when I was crying and it's so vulnerable and so open. He had the wisdom to recognize that I was being vulnerable, and that's when I needed to be hugged, and that's when I needed to be touched. And when we're having an argument and I'm crying on the floor, I need you to come over and comfort me. I don't need you to leave. If you leave, that's it. I feel like I don't deserve you to stay. I don't deserve for you to push through the hard stuff. And this man did it for me. And that healed my heart in ways that I don't even know how to tell you about. Literally, he brought me back to Jesus, and he wasn't even saved. He's the one that caused me to say, you know what? Wow, I am a valuable person. I deserve honor and respect because I am God's holy creature. And after we got married, God just reminded me of that more and more and more. And when our sexual intimacy was in the right context, intimacy exploded. I'm not talking about frequency or other things that changed. I'm talking about my heart. Intimacy exploded. It changed. Ladies and gentlemen, it is different when you get married. It's also more scary. More scary because you can fake it when you're, not seeing the same person every single day and night. You can pretend you're a certain way when you're not. But when you're married, everything comes out. Everything. All the weird stuff, all the, embarrassing stuff, it's there. And as a husband and wife, you are unified. You are one flesh. It's not your body anymore. It's both of your bodies. It's not his body anymore. It's both of your bodies. All right. So that's the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be kind of weird and annoying and embarrassing and, fun and exciting, and all those things, because that's the way God made it, because we're humans and we bring our entire humanhood into the bed. We don't leave, our normal self outside and we say, okay, here's my sexy self, I'm ready. No, it comes in there. So if you're conditioning yourself as a whole person, valued by the Most High, that's designed and created and destined for goodness and grace, oh my, you are going to be on fire when you get with that one person that's allowed and excited to enjoy it with you. I want to speak to those ladies that wish they could feel that way, that wish when the doors were closed, they didn't run to the freezer to get the ice cream, that they didn't go to that extra store, a extra block away, so their husband doesn't know where they're going, to get the candy bar and stuff it in their mouth before anyone can see them, that doesn't hide in the car and, bend over while they eat that last piece of pizza. Girlfriends, I've been there. But listen to me. God doesn't want you to struggle. God wants you to feel loved. He wants you to feel worth it. He wants you to feel worthy of love, because he designed every part of your body and he loves it. He loves your curves. He loves the areas that your husband didn't even know about, like, your neck and your clavicles. Literally, that's one of my favorite parts of my body, and my husband has never mentioned it. Man, you have beautiful clavicles. Why doesn't he say that? Why can't he just mention my clavicles once in a while? But God does. He made those clavicles. He knows those clavicles, and he loves those clavicles. But listen, it's true. Those areas of the body, focus on the ones you love. Focus on the areas that make you proud, that make you say, wow, God knew what he was doing when he designed me. Maybe it's your toes. Maybe you've got some great looking toes, or your fingernails. I'm literally, when I see beautiful hands, I can't help but tell someone about it, because I have always wanted beautiful hands, literally. And I actually, I remember when I was young, I went to a ring store, and for whatever reason, the guy that was, measuring my fingers, wanted to let me and my mom know about how immensely huge my fingers were. And not in like, oh, she's going to be a piano player. No, it was I've never seen hands that big on such a young girl. Oh, okay, that's gonna help her self-esteem. Great. So I would literally, I didn't even remember this. I'm so far away from this experience, but yeah, that's what happened. And in high school and not college, I think I was over it by then, but maybe not. At least middle school, I would hide my hands. I would hide them. I would have my, I would fold my arms all the time because I didn't want people to see my huge hands. And now I think they're beautiful and they're a lovely size. But I didn't know. I didn't know that. So stop calling yourself fat is the point. Stop calling yourself unworthy. Stop calling yourself gross. It's not true. That is what the enemy wants you to think, because I know the cycle. I know because I've been there so many times, and I'm still there, and I still have to fight through it. But this is the cycle. You're walking down the street feeling good about the day. Oh, man. It's going to be a good day. You had your breakfast. You got your shoes on. You are walking down the street and you glance in the window of a store thinking, oh, I'm sure I look great today. I'm excited about what I'm going to see in the mirror. And all of a sudden, the woman looking back at you is a little chunkier than you remembered it this morning. Oh my gosh. And your roll is showing. That muffin top is actually showing. My goodness. Oh man. And you've got to readjust your shirt. You've got to pull up your pants. You've got to suck in. And all of a sudden you've got this crazy demon reminding you that you aren't worth it unless you're beautiful. And that is an attack. That is not of God. That is not true. Because you are beautiful. You are worth it. You have to fight against that disease of lacking self-worth, because it is not true. So the first thing I want you to do in terms of how to get out of this cycle. Sorry, I missed the rest of the cycle. Okay, so you get that demon attacking you on your mind and saying you're not worthy, you're not worth it. So then you see that donut shop and you're like, oh my gosh, I know how to get out of this feeling. This is what I need to do. I need the sugar, because that sugar is going to make me feel better. And once I get that rush in me, I'm not going to even care about this anymore. I'm totally going to be fine. And then you rush over to that donut shop, you eat that donut, and boom, you get that sugar rush. And then about the time that you finish the last bit of the donut, you realize that you just feel worse. And then you're like, wow, it's true. I'm not worth it. I'm really not worth it, because look, if I was worth it, I wouldn't do this to myself. And then you hate that feeling. So then you rush and go get another donut. And actually what you probably do is you're like, you go and make small talk to the cashier. You're like, I should buy a box of donuts for the coworkers. You know what? Actually, instead of 1, give me 12. And then the cashier goes, oh, sure. That's a great idea. That's really kind of you to give, all your coworkers donuts. Oh, I do it every now and then. And then you put it in your car and you drive away and you sit in the parking lot at work and you eat all the donuts yourself. If I'm talking to anyone there, I have been in your shoes. I have been there. I have been there. And it's time to stop this. It's time to stop this lie that the enemy is telling you. Because obviously, after you get through the 12 donuts, then you're even worse. And then you're depressed throughout the rest of the day. And you can't function. And you can't think about anything but food. And, all you want to do is think these depressive thoughts. And it just continues and continues and continues. By the time you get home and your husband is wanting to make, like, are you kidding me? I feel gross and horrible. Why would I want to make love right now? And he's like, well, babe, I just want you. I want you. And you take it out on him, and he doesn't deserve that. And he doesn't know what's going on in your heart, but God does. And God's heart is even more broken, because if you're in this cycle and you've been in this cycle, I'm telling you what, God can't use you if you're in this cycle. He wants you to be whole and healthy and righteous before him, because he wants to use you for his glory. You're a wounded soldier if you are in the cycle of eating addiction. And I'm calling it an addiction because that is what it is. See, my dad was so brave recently. He has gotten out of a 45-year alcohol addiction. Every moment of his life, I've known him. He has been addicted to alcohol. And that colors everything in his life. Everything. Our relationship, his marriage folded as a result of that. I mean, all of these things were affected by it. Of course, my mom could have maybe done other choices or whatever, but everything was affected by it. And now, as he's got a bunch of adult kids and they're having grandkids and he has no relationship with them. I think he started to wake up and realize, wow, this is the issue. And thank God he went to a rehab center and he got clean and got sober. And within the last year, he is totally sober. I have never seen this man sober. Never. And he's the one, I mean, he's the, big football player kind of guy, 6'5" or something, big hands, obviously, that's where I get them from. But he's the kind that's like as stubborn as a mule, like when he wants something, he goes for it. And when he thinks he can handle it, whether he can or not. But thank God that's worked to his favor when he got humble enough to say, this is wrong and I need to change this. Now he has the stubbornness to say, I'm not going back. I am not going back. I'm not going back. So anyway, the point is he is out and this man is becoming a good man. And I'd say there was a good man hiding in there before, but now I can see it. I can see it. I've never seen it. I'm proud of my father. I am so proud of him. And I'm telling you, I'm not going to tell you some of the things in the past, but sordid. I would say a dirty past. But I'm telling you, I am proud of him and I forgive him of everything. I forgave him before that. But man, what he is able to do now that he is free, he can be the best grandfather. He can be the best husband to his new wife that I love. And I'm so grateful that they're together. And I mean, he just has the opportunity to do so much because he kicked this addiction. He can do so much for the Lord. And honestly, I don't know about his salvation at this point, but I believe, his wife is really on fire. So I think pretty soon, he's going to be on fire too. It's so funny. I went to visit them the other day and she's got like pictures of Jesus above the bathtub. And I'm like, you know what? All my prayers, my whole life about my dad being saved. And then he ends up with this woman. Thank God. Thank God. How funny is that? All right. Sorry, I'm getting off track. But the point is, God can do so much if you choose to be humble and realize that this is not the cycle he wants for you. All right, so these are the steps I want to ask you to take, and these are the steps I'm taking even now. I mean, today, daily, I'm taking these steps because this is not something that you can just, assume if you don't have intentional effort, it's going to go away. It's not going to go away. You have to change your life. And if you are not uncomfortable, you are not changing. Let me say that one more time. If you are not uncomfortable, you are not changing. And I'm calling you higher. I'm calling you to war against this sickness. Okay, so the first thing is get busy. Number one, get busy with what you love. What areas have you been hurt in or are hurting in that you can help others? Start focusing your energy on that. Whatever it is, focus on that. And honestly, if you don't know what it is, just start. God will direct you. Just start. I love what Joyce Meyer says. And she says, when you're in a boat, a sailboat, right? Without wind, without the, no, I guess it doesn't matter what kind of boat. If the boat is in the water, if the boat is standing still, it's really hard to control it. You can't move a boat that's still. But if the boat is moving, let's say you put an engine on there, let's say you put some sails on there, it starts moving. Oh, why then you can direct that boat, you can move it. So I just believe what Joyce is saying is that, a boat that's moving, God can direct. But if you're not moving, I mean, that's the issue. You're just sitting down eating. And that's what I was for so many, many years. Okay. So yeah, the secret to success is to fail over and over again without losing enthusiasm. Now that's the business kind of secular understanding of success or whatever. I love that. I love it. It encourages me. But if you think about faith, it's the same way. I mean, faith is the evidence of things unseen, right? It's I might have this switch, the substance of things hoped for. In Hebrews 11:1, I believe. That's what we're talking about, faith. So God is a hopeful God. He wants you to change and he believes you can change. He's fighting for you to change. I'm telling you, if you are 50 and you have got 800 pounds overweight, he still is fighting for you to change. He still loves you and wants you to change. He wants to have the life that he died to give, the abundant life. Number 2, don't look at the road ahead. Don't, get on the scale and say, okay, I've got 800 pounds to lose. Don't look at that. I'm sorry, but that's not what God asks us to do. He doesn't say, start if you're sure you can succeed. Don't do that. He just asks you to do grace by grace by grace, day by day by day, that his mercies are new every morning, and he's going to wake up with you fresh next morning. If you fall down and make a mistake and you binge, he wants you to get back up the next day and start over and recommit and fail again. But don't lose enthusiasm the next day. Don't lose enthusiasm. Fail again, but don't lose enthusiasm. I believe that at the end of a day, that maybe you did these small choices, these small things, it matters to God. And I want to read for you something I was reading the other day that really spoke to my heart. It was Matthew 25:21. And this is the story of the talents. If you haven't read it, it is powerful. So check out Matthew 25. But I'm just going to read that last part where the master comes back to see his followers, the people that he invested money in. And the master comes back, and his Lord said to him, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of the Lord." So I believe that God cares about those little things because he's going to elevate you and cause you to get higher and better if you care about those little things. You know, sin creeps in. Sin creeps in little by little by little. So if you're faithful in the little, man, you're set. You're set. If you create a habit of being faithful in the little, you're set. That's when God is going to bless you. That's when he's going to give you opportunities. Because let's say you're not faithful in the little and accidentally somehow you fall into it, or you work hard and you get to have that platform. If you are not faithful in the little and then you're elevated, oh, honey, oh my gosh, can you imagine having hundreds of thousands of people looking at you and inside you're not confident that you're okay? You're not confident that you are a person of integrity, that you are faithful in the small things? Now, this is not a call to perfection. None of us can be perfect, but this is a call to decide that the status quo, if you have allowed yourself to just forget about health and your body, it is a call to step up an extra measure. You know, just because Christ died for us, like Paul says, should we just keep on sinning so grace can abound? But instead, we should run the race. We should press forward. We should do what God is asking us to do. You're going to mess up and you're going to fail. And I mess up and I fail. And the other day, I was going to bring my husband home donuts from church, and I did, and he had one of them, but I ate the rest. So I'm still working on this thing. But the cool thing is that every time you put forth the effort and you try, I think that God blesses that. And as long as you don't give up, really, just don't give up. Keep going. God says that every day is like 1,000 years to him, and 1,000 years is like a day. So if you can imagine one day being 1,000 years, then when you're angry with someone, God, that's like a 24-hour period, even if that's just a moment. God knows, and he cares about the movements of your heart. All right, I want to move on to the next piece. Number 3, be open with this. That's right. Let your husband know. Let your husband know what you're dealing with. And if you can't find the words, just let him listen to this, honestly. If this is ringing true for you, just let him listen to this and cry with him a little bit. Be open about it. And I know it hurts, and it's possible he could give you a bad response, and I'm sorry about that. But it's possible he could have grace with you. It's possible he could change his heart. So don't be afraid. Be willing to be open. And you know what I did when I was struggling with bulimia? After little by little, my husband was so kind to support me and get me through it. I shared it with him, and only until he was my boyfriend at the time, but only until I shared it with him did I start to find a level of freedom in that area. Literally, it was all consuming all the time until I was able to tell him, this is what I've been doing for months, and you've known me for months. And once I was open, then there was a little bit of a level of freedom. And then I shared it with more people. I actually, my family environment, I've kind of chatted about, there's problems, and there's real things too, like everyone, but there's problems. And I sent a mass email to all of my, my close family members. And I said, this is what's been happening in my life. I just wanted to let you know because I'm committed to changing. And literally that was when I was still struggling. And after that email, I'm telling you, something broke in me, something changed. I did not have that temptation anymore because I was like, you know what? I called myself to a higher level. I called myself higher, and I called myself out on my sin. And man, it changed. So ladies, be open with it, okay? The other thing is, let your husband know that any comment that does not encourage you makes you want to eat. Any comment that is not encouraging your wife makes her want to eat. If this is her struggle, that is what is happening. So husbands, when you see your wife making the small changes, these small things being faithful about, maybe just choosing to have a salad, mixed, salad and pasta, that is worth praising her for. Praise her, honor her effort. Say, oh my gosh, you woke up early to stretch? Wow, I'm so proud of you. You know how many women don't do that. Thank you. I love your body. Thank you for honoring it. Literally, if those words have never come out of your mouth, start, rewind this little audio and start, because they need to start coming out of your mouth. So here's the deal. The other thing I want to just mention is number 4 for wives that, again, are struggling with this. Get into the word. That's the 4th thing that's really important. Flood it over you. Let the kind, gentle, loving conviction of the Holy Spirit speak to your heart, not the devil's condemnation that comes from the sin of the world. Don't, meditate on these magazines that, these models. You think that's going to encourage you? No, that's the enemy that's going to condemn you. Don't do that. That doesn't help. That's wrong. Maybe some people it works. I disagree. I don't think it helps. I think you shouldn't be comparing yourself to other people. It says that the people that compare themselves by each other are not wise. It's in the Bible somewhere. I don't remember where, but all right. So, flood it over you. Let the kind, gentle, loving conviction of the Holy Spirit speak to you. In James 4:7, it says, submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil and he will flee from you. I believe this, wife. If you're listening to this, if you submit yourself to God, he will flee from you. All right. Well, my last point, I just thank you so much for bearing with me. It's a little bit longer of an episode, I know, but my last point I want to share with you, it's actually a story. A man reached out to me and asked if we could have a conversation. And I'm open to it. That was really, generous of him to say the good things about the ministry and that kind of thing. He told me a little bit about himself, his background, his work. He's got a wonderful wife. He talks very highly of her. He's got wonderful kids that are in the ministry doing amazing work for God. The whole time I'm like, okay, the shoe is going to drop. What is really going on? Why did we need to talk? But I, welcomed the conversation, was so grateful that he was willing to trust me with whatever was on his heart. And he started telling me about how much he honors and respects women and how much he's learned about women and how much he wants to honor and respect his wife because she's such an incredible woman. And I was like, wow, this guy really gets it. Praise God, this guy gets it. All right, sir. And then he said, I've loved your resources so far because I think you understand the heart of a man. And he said, he basically started telling me the story that slowly after they got married, started to see that she was gaining weight little by little. And he didn't want to say anything. He wanted her to feel loved and respected and honored, all these things. And, but eventually it started to get to be a lot. And he started to, see other people as being attractive. And he was like, God, what is happening? Why can't I have this for my wife? Why I have a wife at home? What is the problem here? And slowly this just kind of continued until basically he admitted to me present day that right now he's doing so much work for God and helping so many people. But in his own marriage, he feels isolated and alone because of the intense amount of weight that's getting in the way of him loving his wife. And he shared with me a number that's a lot. And I don't know what that number is for you or your husband even. It might be less, it might be more. So I asked him a question. I understood his heart because he really wanted me to know how much he loves and respects women. And this is still something he struggles with. He wants her to be her full, glorious self. And yet, this is the struggle. And I said, if all of your years of marriage, 20 plus years, grown kids, can you imagine the stuff that happens in 20 plus years? People die, you've got grieving going on. You've got, a friend that's, sick in bed and you've got to help them. So many things happen in marriages, right? They break all the time for that reason. And I asked him on a scale of 1 to 10, how big of an issue is this? And he was like, you know what? That's a really good question. And he took a minute to think about it, and he said, well, actually, honestly, no. He didn't take a minute to think about it. He said, we've been through a lot. We have been through a lot, she and I, and she has been a good wife, and she has done so many good things. And then he said, this has been huge. Huge. This has been huge for me. And then he started to say, if I had known, and he stopped himself because he didn't want to finish that, but I know what he was saying. This man loves his wife, and yet this is getting in the way to such a degree that if he had known that she was going to do this from the get-go, he would have chosen someone else. Wives, listen to this man's heart. He is a God man, and he loves his wife, and yet she's not loving her own body. When she said, my body is not my own, but it is my husband, she didn't mean it, because she has been hiding the food, eating it on her own, and not regarding her husband's desires of her at all. She has not allowed herself to be one with her husband. And I want to say, wives, I hear you, and I love you, and I understand where you are. But listen to this man. He is hurting. He is hurting because of your choices on your body. That is what God was talking about when he says we're one flesh. It's not your own body anymore, ladies. It's your husband's. And husbands, when you abuse pornography or use women for your own satisfaction, that's the same thing. It's not just hurting you, it's hurting your wife. So I want to just ask and challenge the ladies, would you just listen to this audio again and just pray and thank God he has given you the opportunity to change before it's too late. Before it's too late, you have the opportunity to change. If you're still breathing air, you have the opportunity to change. God gave you that air. He gave you that wisdom. He gave you this opportunity to make a change. Get to a place where you say it's a big deal and you have the hope and the ability and the power to change it. I'm seriously, think about it day by day by day. You walk a long journey just by walking one day at a time. I'm going to leave with that story because I think that really illustrates it. This man was in tears, literally. I asked him if I could pray for him because I said, listen, I'm so grateful that you have chosen to honor and be faithful. But you need prayer, sir, because this is not an easy road. This is not an easy road for you. And so I prayed for him, and I asked God to help him have the grace to be faithful. And I asked God to help him feel loved, even though the choices his wife are making daily on her own body is making him not feel loved. That's what I asked God to do for this man. I'm going to ask any man that's listening that God would do the same for your heart, that you would have the grace to not fall into temptation even though it's all around you, that if your wife is making bad choices with her health, I just ask that God would give you, I'm just going to pray, Father, any man that's out here today listening to this and shaking his head yes and saying, I wish my wife could understand how I feel about her body, that I want to enjoy it to the nth degree that God created it to be, and yet she doesn't value it for herself. God, Father, would you help that man? Give him the love in his heart for his wife to embrace her vulnerability, to understand she's hurting, and that's why she does this. The only reason she's, upset when he criticizes her is because it's hurt. It hurts her. So, Lord, I just ask for an ability, a grace. Only your grace allows us to understand each other. I ask for a grace to understand the wives and understand the husbands, God, that they would understand each other. They're broken people trying to figure this out together, God. Oh, Lord, I ask for the wives that you would give them hope, that you have destined this day to be a change in their perspective on the way they interact with food, God. That today is the day of salvation from this disease, this sickness that they have been feeding into for so long. In Jesus' name, I pray that today would be a day that would mark as different. I ask you, God, that you are the one that can break and break down walls, God. You are the one that brings hearts of stone into heart of flesh. You are the one, oh God. Holy Spirit, would you move today? In Jesus' name, amen. Again, I just want to appreciate you for sticking with me on this important topic, and I just pray that your life and marriage and walk with God are just encouraged, and you have a better and more significant understanding of your oneness with each other. I know that's kind of a huge topic to tackle in one episode. It's going to take a lot of time to really meditate on and think through, but I really believe that when you decide and you put in the work, God is going to honor that and help you with this day by day, step by step. And it's funny, actually, the day after I recorded this, my husband comes home with lots of cake and ice cream from his work, and I could not believe it. And of course, while he's at work the very next day, I had to throw it away because I couldn't have it in the house. So hopefully you don't waste food like that. But if you have to, I mean, come on, this is a war. Throw that stuff away. Okay. Thank you so much. If you can stay after the little music, I'll have a quick announcement for you just in terms of how DYM is moving. Okay, thanks again. God bless you, and I love you, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks for listening. If you've been blessed by this, why not share it? Until next time, live with love, wisdom, and passion.
If you need to stop this and pray, if God's talking to you, just go right ahead. Cry, whatever you want to do. I did the same thing when I listened to this the second time. I'm just like, Lord, you're so good. Two things. First is, I'm so sorry about the audio quality. I really wish that this was good quality. I'll record it again probably at some point, hopefully in the future when I get a better computer. But for now, it's not in the budget. So eventually I'll get to that spot. But the second thing is, it's actually an announcement. I'm going to close my social media accounts for Delight Your Marriage. That's the Facebook page, the Twitter accounts, the Pinterest boards, all the social media ones, for this reason. One, this is really a private subject, obviously. That's why just you and I are talking together. But, Facebook and these other social media outlets aren't, in my opinion, necessarily the right context for this discussion. It's really appropriate to be in a podcast form like you and I do. But if you find something helpful and you have some friends that you'd like to share it with, feel free to share it on social media if you'd like to, or private messages or texting or all those other things that make it, comfortable for you to be able to talk to your friends openly about it in a safe space, in a safe way. Further, the other ways you can really follow what DYM is doing is you can sign up for our email list. And the way to do that is go to delightyourmarriage.com/social. And there I give a free guide. It's called 8 Secrets to Staying Present in the Bedroom. I don't know if you've ever had the challenge of getting things going, and all of a sudden your mind is on the laundry and the socks that are on the floor and all these other ideas that come into your head. So here's some practical guidance that can help you just zone in, especially for wives. The men that are listening are probably like, what? What do you mean? I don't need a guide for that, please. So anyway, the emails, just so you know, I'm going to try my best to make it very relevant for you, something that actually will help you and inspire you in your day and your walk with God and your marriage, because I really think we need support in this thing. If 50% of marriages fail, and then second marriages, 50% or like 70% of those fail, I'm telling you what, we need some help. So I would love to be that support, once or twice a week, just to kind of give you that little pickup in your inbox. The other thing I'm going to do is at the end of the show, after the music, just like today, I'm going to give you a little snippet of what's happening in the coming weeks. I want to do it after the show because I want you to have the opportunity to digest what just happened. You could pause, you can pray, you can meditate, you can come back, 3 days later and listen to what's happening next week. Just don't let your mind get clouded with too much distraction. So that's kind of the point there. But I'm going to start doing that. And of course, that shows come out every Tuesday morning and Thursday morning. And honestly, if I ever miss one of those days, it is a problem that happened. I really am trying to get these incredibly consistent for you. And my backup systems are, going to the coffee shop. If the internet is down, there's a handful of coffee shops in New York City. So I think I'll be fine, but I really try my best. So you can count on that. Otherwise, I'd like to tell you about what's happening this coming week and next week. So our next show on Thursday, I interview a doctor who is going to talk to us about sexual health. So it's actually very applicable to this topic, and it's awesome, really. I have read and studied a lot on this, honestly, and he tells a lot of things that I've never heard before. So I think you're going to love it. It has really inspired me in the last weeks to get super healthy, and it has been a great benefit. I'm telling you what. Then next week is a real treat. I have a woman who is an incredibly godly woman and clearly has been in the scriptures so much. And she actually is one of those people that has been forgiven much, and so she loves much. Jesus talks about that. Well, she left a life in the sex industry where she was selling sex to pay her pimp, and it's just unbelievable story, and she has got incredible insights. I believe that you are going to be just shocked and amazed at what God can do through any of us. And she is so brave to tell her story and fight for justice in this vital area of our society. So don't miss that, happening next week. I will talk to you then. Thank you so much for sticking with me on this much longer episode, but I hope that it has blessed you and your marriage and your life. And we'll talk soon. Bye.